My name is Lance Diskan, and my birth date is April 28th, 1946. I arrived in Venice on Thanksgiving Day, 1968. I was sent to Venice against my will. I was sent to Venice because I was deselected by the federal government to be posted to a site on a Native American Indian reservation. I wanted to work for environmental causes and with tribal people, and instead they sent me to what was then the armpit of the nation. When I arrived in Venice, I spent the first night on the floor of a guy named Vic Wilson, who worked for the Unified School District on Brooks Avenue. And I was pretty depressed that I had been sentenced to an urban location. And so I thought, well, the natural part of Venice is the beach. That's the ocean. That's the sky. I guess I'll go down to the beach and see how that part of Venice is. And I went down for sunset, the first of 9,000 sunsets. And went out to the edge of the water and watched the sun go down. And just as the sun went down, the people up and down the beach applauded the sun going down. And I thought, this place might have some potential. They applauded the sun setting. So I said, I guess I'll stay and see how long it lasts, and I stayed 25 years. Venice was a new experience for me when I came. I saw and interacted with people that I hadn't done in my previous life. More people of color, different categories of people, different foods. I'd never had an avocado growing up in New England. So there was different foods. The community was very thick as far as defending itself against development. The local politics was active, and I blended into that already ongoing political struggle. The first 2 years I lived in Oakwood at 618 Westminster Avenue with two other Vista volunteers. We had three guys who were in that apartment. We worked with other people to establish the Venice Family Clinic, worked with Stan Trimble from UCLA, and the Venice Clinic, which was on the corner of Lincoln and Venice at that time. And I did anything that related to health or that would help people have a healthier life. We did. Mostly it was, a lot of it was health related, and some of it was simply development related. The first thing for people's health was to be able to stay where they were and not be evicted. The purpose of my program and my posting in Venice was to help low-income people. And so I began to see those people, and I began to see that there were various kinds. There were some people low income because of racial discrimination. There were elderly Jews at the Israel Evans Center who were low income for a different reason. There were all kinds of discrimination. And I found that there were people all around me that were actually just hanging on by their fingernails. And that was an interesting lesson to learn about economics and how overlooked people are around us all the time. I went to a meeting as the Vista in health issues, went to a meeting at Broadway Elementary that was between Oakwood residents and activists and people from the city's health bureaucracy. And the people in Oakwood were arguing for greater participation and to be listened to and to have services that were available more hours so that people could take advantage of them. And there was a heated debate between America, who worked in Venice, was a local organizer. Heated exchange between America Donovan and some of the representatives of the city. And at one point in the debate, some of the city representatives had said something that America didn't like, and she stood up and put her foot on the chair that she had been sitting at, and then stood up on the table with all the people gathered around the table, and went down the end of the table and stood in front of the representative of the city and turned around and whipped up her dress and said, "You can kiss my black ass." Well, I hadn't seen anybody do that before. That was really, I guess the word they use now is bodacious. That was a pretty bodacious act. And I realized, hey, I'm out of my comfort zone here. I'm in a behavior pattern that is totally alien to me. I really don't know. I was a nice, polite boy. You didn't do that. But she was just one of many Venice characters who let it hang out. My perspective was shaped by the people who were already here and fighting for Venice. They were frequently drastic, desperate, didn't have a representative of their point of view at all. And I learned that if you want to get some attention, you have to be a little bit dramatic and not too polite and not infinitely patient. And you have to hold people accountable to what they had said, etc. So the Venice veterans, at that time, they were veterans and I was the newcomer. The Venice veterans taught me. They did anything that would keep me in Venice. If there was employment inside of a 1 mile square block, I'd do it.
So you had gotten the Venice bug?
Oh yes, there was nothing like Venice, and people were extraordinary, and they were colorful, and they were outspoken, and they were opinionated, and they were extremely diverse. I guess some part of nonconformist in me resonated with that, and I said, well, this is a pretty good place. I was hired by Raul Murrow to be a manager at the Fox Venice in the late 70s, and that was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. The Fox Venice was the first repertory cinema in America, meaning it played a different double feature every day. So every single day you started and you'd have 2 films by Fellini or 2 films by this or that. Every Sunday, there were Spanish language films, and people from Oakwood, Hispanics and Spanish speakers, would come to the Fox Venice after church in the morning. They'd come and they'd still be in their quinceanera dresses and everything from church, and they would watch Spanish language double features, which were extraordinarily violent. I mean, there was more blood than you can imagine. And I couldn't understand why nice people would go directly from church to take their little children to go see 4 hours of butchery. But that's what they did. So we had that audience. We had experimental films, and there was that audience that would come for those. We had foreign language films, and people would come for that. So there were many different kinds of films that were available, and different audiences for each of those kinds of films. Each one had a different kind of a draw. Plus we had live entertainment, and we had live acts. And so people would come and bands would come and play. San Francisco Mime Troupe and Les Blanc films. He played films. I don't know if people know Les Blanc. He's a documentary filmmaker. Has a film called Garlic is as Good as Two Mothers about the Gilroy Garlic Festival. And he had a film called Red Beans and Rice, and he would cook it upstairs in the upstairs at the Fox. There's a studio, and he would cook it, and then would walk up and down the aisle with a fan and would waft red beans and rice into the audience up and down the aisle, like a smell-o-vision, right? And then after the movies, everybody ate the red beans and rice. We were one of the first that did Rocky Horror, before it became that famous. And we had a midnight show, and people came from all over to perform and yell and be part of it and throw things at the screen and interact with that film, which was great, except I was the manager and the staff were called candy people, as they still are. If you sell concessions, you're a candy person. And the candy people would run down and do stuff at the movie. They would interact with the movie, which meant there was nobody to sell popcorn because the people had run down to the stage. But it was a great experience and a great social experience to interact with all these different populations, different population groups. Fox constituency was very wide. It went out all over. It went to different communities. It went to artists. It went to museums. It went to normal theater goers, etc., film buffs, and it provided a lot of opportunity for people to learn about film. It was, however, you'd have to call the theater to find out what was playing, especially because it changed every single day. So you couldn't just call a number and get a recording. The recording had to be made for the next day every night. And I was the manager, and you'd practice, and could you not trip up while you were talking? Could you say the title correctly or the director correctly? And then people would hear it. So you had to make a new tape recording every night, and it had to be right on the button as far as the number of seconds. And if you ran too long, you had to do it again, so it fit exactly correctly. And I wasn't even aware of it, but I would go out places and people would say, you're the voice of the Fox. I got feedback other places too. If I spoke, people would hear, are you the voice of the Fox, Venice? So
claim to fame?
yes, it was a small claim to fame. Oh yes, I still consider myself a resident of Venice. Venice now, Venice forever. The years that I was part of Venice history, people were really allied with one another. They fought for Venice as a whole. They fought to not have it homogenized, not have it all upscale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was inspirational to me. Venice is kind of a test tube, a breeding ground for the unorthodox. And we desperately need the unorthodox.